Well, we made it to Grand Isle, and as you remember, I want to show you, our camera is mounted on top of this building. That's the camera shot we showed you for Grand Isle until the roof flew in front of the camera, and then it was gone. Immediately after that, callers were going, well, Martin, the eye wall must have just reached Grand Isle. The eye wall had not reached Grand Isle yet. That was a couple of bands before the eye wall. Now, from being on the island and looking at the damage, as you go further east, the damage is less. But from this point on back towards the bridge, buildings are mangled, just totally destroyed. And we're going to show you drone footage of all of that damage because you got to see it. You almost have to be here and feel the damage to understand how strong this storm was. Now, if I could get Dwayne to film down the road here, there's a roof that's missing right down the street. That's probably the roof that flew in front of our camera. It's the only roof in this area that's missing, which tells me that the most eastern side, right when the winds were getting a little less, was from this multiplex on this way. Everything towards the bridge was the eastern eye wall. There's no doubt in my mind. Towards Fouchon. So over Fouchon, Grand Isle, on the western side, over Golden Meadow, over Leeville, ground zero. This is damage. This is ground zero. Mangled would be a new word to use. This whole area, Leeville, going into Grand Isle, mangled. Look at the mud. Camp's missing. Sometimes you think it's a vacant lot and you realize there's pilings. I'd hate to have seen the winds in this area. And this is not on the eastern eye wall. Marina's full of mud. Camps have mud and sand underneath them. Yeah, mangled would be a good word to use, as we're now going over the bridge to get to Grand Isle. In short order, we'll have a look at Grand Isle. We're now about to arrive at Grand Isle, and we're going to get a first-hand look at the work going on and the damage that Hurricane Ida created. Of course, we understand a lot of public officials will be on Grand Isle today, but I'm sure the extent of the damage is massive. We have a mobile command center on the left. Our cameras on the right might be tough to get, but there you can see just camps and homes blown away. It's certainly one of the benchmarks of our area, Grand Isle. The great people, the great community. And they've fought so hard over the years to get protection from the water. But I guess when winds are coming in excess of 180, by all accounts, anywhere from 180 to 220, I guess it's difficult to fathom how this double hit of water and wind has affected Grand Isle. Still have a lot of water on the island, some from probably roads that have been broken and then rainwater's come in. Dwayne, I don't know if you could see on this side, but once again, I use the word mangled. It's a new word, but mangled is appropriate. Complete structures missing, complete homes just imploded. You see this big orange camp on the left. Rooftop completely gone. The debris is incredible. And the further we get in, the worse it gets. And to be honest, folks, from the drone footage that we saw, the ground shots are much worse. We're going over a sand road now where some of the road was washed out. But coming up ahead, right ahead of us, is another shot that shows you the ferocity of this storm. The visuals sort of speak for themselves. Now we know when we saw that roof fly off during our live coverage of Grand Isle, before the eye wall even arrived on the island, we know now how strong these winds were. And I'm going to slow down here so Dwayne can get a shot. I'm with Richard Toops and Dwayne Dupre, our HTV crew. And I could tell Rich is sort of glued looking. He's been here many times, and he's sort of in disbelief as we come through here. Not only the wind damage, the sand and the mud that was brought in. Up ahead, Dwayne, we're going to pass it in a second. But, I mean, folks, I can't even begin to describe the feeling. I've seen Grand Isle for so many years, and I have never seen it torn up like this. Never. A little further down the island at this point, not even to City Hall yet. And it seems like most of the camps on the beach, I mean, if you could call that better, did better than some across the street. Across the street is massive damage. That may change as we get a little further to the eastern side of Grand Isle, but you could tell construction crews working, a lot of work going on as we speak. And at one point we're going to meet up with the mayor, David Carmadale, to explain to us all the dynamics here, but I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this is going to take a long time to get Grand Isle back up and to be what it used to be. And despite the fact that they've fought through many storms, I have never seen Grand Isle look like this, ever. This is ground zero. Golden Meadow and Grand Isle are the worst I've seen of all the areas we've been through. And look, southern Terrebonne Parish is pretty bad, but this is the difference between the eastern eye wall and the western eye wall. It's from, I don't know what level of catastrophic on the eastern side I could describe, but that's the level we're seeing, to a moderate catastrophic on the western side. That's how strong this storm was. I mean, all you got to do is you see a camp standing, then you look right past it, and you got one massacred, like we see ahead of us right here, right now. And Dwayne, that'll be on your left flank out the window as we approach it. I'm almost lost for words when you describe what we're seeing. Mangled is about the only word that comes to mind. I know you've heard a lot of people say it's like a bomb went off. They're pretty close. Structures that have been here for years. That you're used to seeing. And sort of way you could gauge where you are. It's hard to gauge where you are unless you're from here. If you come here occasionally like we do, every now and then you get a a sign that's up where you can see where you actually are. But for the most part, there are no signs. There are no street signs. Telephone poles are scarce. See a lot of activity, a lot of bobcats moving back and forth. And at this point, it's like a needle in a haystack. You know, they're moving certain sectors, but there's so much debris to move here still that it's going to take a long, long time. On this left side, Dwayne, the entire building collapsed. And in this onset, in this row back here, several structures down completely. And as we get further on the island, the worse it gets. The eastern eye wall side. I remember using the word devastation in Andrew. I'm realizing now I was totally wrong in using that word in 1992. This is devastation. Goes to show you, we get fixated on storms we've lived through, not knowing that one day a bigger and a badder storm will come through. Well, this one was the bigger and the badder storm that we will gauge every other storm from, at least in our lifetime. Hopefully our children's lifetime, because what they've gone through here with Hurricane Ida, I guarantee you they will not forget. Look on the right here, Dwayne's already on it. Roof's completely gone. I have not seen a camp yet, or a home, that doesn't have some type of damage. That alone is the definition of a Cat 5. And I really feel in short order, all the books will show this to be a Cat 5. See how the news crews on the island also documenting the damage. Now this homeowner was smart. I'm going to turn right here to show you. Look what this homeowner on this camp did with the pollens going over the roof. I'm going to get where Dwayne can give you a good shot. Pollens going over the roof and across the roof. Now, architecturally, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but hey, the one right next to it also still has some roof left on it. Seems like this group did it pretty good. Some buildings shielded other buildings from having damage, but every building on this island has some type of damage. Every one. Man, this area of Grand Isle is, look at the poles down. It's getting worse. How could it get worse when we've already seen the worst? This is the Grand Isle sign that you saw in our camera shots as we were live. The Grand Isle multiplex where our camera is. Our camera's still up on the left. The power just went out. There was a roof that flew right here on camera in front of us, and I'm looking to see where that roof came from, and it might be the third building has no roof on it on the right. That might have been the roof we saw. But of course, the strength of this wind, you could have had somebody's roof 1,000 yards away. But I would imagine what we saw would be this roof right here that came off. You see the locals shopping too, but look at that. Look at that damage. So Town Hall here in Grand Isle took a pretty big hit. We continue to move further east on Grand Isle for those tuning in. Look back here, Dwayne, on the left. It just, in this grove back here in Cheetah Lane. Complete buildings down behind the shoreway. As we move further east, to me it looks like the wind damage is less the further east we go. So I would say right around that Terrebonne Parish, Lafourche Parish line is where the eye went over, and that eastern side of the eye wall, right over the central part of Grand Isle, and a little more to the west of Grand Isle, and then over Golden Meadow. Because, I mean, if you can call this better, it is better than what we just went through. So most of the camps have damage, but they're just not completely mangled like we just went through. So that's quite telling where ground zero was in Grand Isle. It's on the first portion of the island, all the way to a little bit past the multiplex. There's still significant damage, don't get me wrong, past it, but you're not talking every single structure that has been damaged. And we don't know how they built these camps back then. Some may have been up to current code, some may not have been. And that also means a lot when you see a structure down. But in the beginning of the island and in Leeville, when you see just total structures going, I don't know if there's a code to stand that kind of thing. This is where the eye wall went over. I'm going to get Richard just to pan right over here and just show you what's almost like a graveyard. It's just destruction everywhere. Camps and homes down as far as you can see. Now, what we have here, Dwayne is also about to launch our drone. I'm going to get Richard to pan over here to the left. Dwayne Dupree is going to launch our HTV drone. HTV, the hurricane tracking vehicle, right here. And we're going to give you a drone shot of what we're seeing all around us. Now, this is right where the eye wall came over, the worst quadrant. And we'll show you some of these shots again as Richard will pan out. And I'm going to go look at what Dwayne is actually filming to narrate that portion of it. This is ground zero. I know we've been saying ground zero a lot. This is ground zero. There's no doubt from here to Fouchon, the worst of this storm, it just demolished everything in its path. And the only structures still standing were probably cloaked by other structures that sheared some of the wind. And it could be they were built later. Some had better codes than others. But as we give you the panoramic over here, and trust me, the ground level looks worse than the drone shots. I mean, you're here on the ground, you can see it for what it's worth. But Dwayne's actually moving back towards the west. And there's just not many camps over here or homes that were spared this storm. Debris all over the place. I was just talking to a gentleman next door, and he was telling me how he survived 4 or 5 storms, but he said this is the worst. And he said right up the road, somebody clocked the winds at 224. So that falls in line with everything we've been hearing. Sustained winds closer to 200, I'm convinced, and gust over 220. There's no doubt in my mind, looking at this damage, no doubt that this is a Cat 5 and a strong Cat 5, no doubt. I want to thank my crew, Dwayne Dupre, who's on that drone, doing a great job, highly skilled. Richard Toops is on the ground camera. And I got the hard-working crew at the office, too, who we send these back to, who I mention all the time. And Jason Serenier in that control room. Jen Holohan helping him out there today. Got Joni Petrie and Darla Bazeron fielding phone calls. I want to thank Myrna Folse for all the archive footage we were able to get throughout all this time. And see, Richard, I'll let people see what we're seeing here. If you could come show Dwayne working the drone. He's, he's got all the bells and whistles. He's got his own little shade window. Right, Dwayne?
That's right. Gotta be able to see.
You're right. So how long have you been working drones?
I've been working drones probably about 5-6 years now. I've been licensed.
And Dwayne's the one that talked me into getting this drone. It's a nice drone, and there it is right over the rooftops, getting you some shots that you wouldn't normally see. Mangled wharfs. Some wharfs made it, others stripped. Just an ugly scene. On this row right here, Dwayne Camps fell down completely. He'll show you that as he moves towards that area.